Welcome to Freedom Forest, guys, the 3-acre edible oasis that we're creating here in the south of England, where we like to try lots of new things and push the boundaries with what we can grow using permaculture and no-dig methods. Absolutely no chemicals, weed killers or synthetic fertilisers, just what nature provides. Hi folks, and welcome back to Freedom Forest, where today I thought it would be nice to give you an autumn tour of how our veggie beds and growing areas are looking right now. And as you can see, the food forest is starting to look really autumnal. The leaves are changing colour. This tree has actually lost all of its leaves already. We have just finished harvesting all of our apples from in here, but we are still getting lots of raspberries coming out of the food forest. We've got a few smaller clumps which have been cropping for quite a long time already, and then we've got this lovely big clump over here behind the camera which is just starting to get going. So we should have some beautiful raspberries still to come. And then over here we've got these lovely yellow raspberries, and there's actually quite a few which I need to get out and harvest later on today, because it's been a couple of days since I harvested last, and the raspberries don't respond very well to the rain, so I always try and harvest when there's been a day or two dry. Still got some beautiful colour coming from my favourite salvias there though, lighting everything up, even though the colours are starting to naturally dull down with the season. Autumn is my favourite time for colours though. I absolutely love the oranges and browns of autumn. So something that I'm really excited to show you guys is just around this corner here, and it is our yacon. And I do not know what has happened to this yacon this year, but it just has not stopped growing. It is absolutely huge, and it is still growing. You can see this is all lovely, fresh, young growth on these leaves. We haven't had a frost yet here. We almost had one a few nights ago, but not quite. And I'm just wondering how much bigger these plants are going to get. It feels like they're kind of trying to take over. But hopefully that means we're going to have a really good harvest. And I think we're going to have more than enough yacon. And as you can see here, some of the plants are just starting to flower as well. There's another one round here which has got a beautiful full flower out on it. And they're just like tiny miniature sunflowers, because the yacon is actually in the same family as sunflowers and Jerusalem artichokes, which I'll show you in just a second, and you'll be able to see the resemblance. Come on, Paddy. Come on then. And up in our main growing area as well, you're definitely beginning to see the change of season. We have still got lots growing in these beds though, and I don't actually think there's going to be many beds to fully close down at all this winter with the growth that's still going right now. I'm sure there will be later on in the year. It just doesn't feel like that right now. So you may have seen in one of our recent videos, this bed here is now completely planted with French garlic. And you can see just germinating there is the white mustard seed, which we are sowing as a cover crop this year, something new that we're trying. And I'll show you how that looks 2 weeks ahead of time in our elephant garlic bed in just a moment. We have got So many beautiful greens. And this pink stem peppermint chard, this batch here has been going all season. This was the first sowing that I did of this pink chard, and it's still lush, it's still fresh and beautiful, and we're still harvesting from it. And then the slightly smaller sowing here, and yet another sowing here are subsequent sowings from later in the season. We are definitely going to have more than enough greens to see us through winter. We've got beetroots down here, dotted with some carrots along the front as well that we're still harvesting from. This is something I've tried for the first time this year, really enjoying. This is a loose leaf endive, really, really nice. And I actually really love the fact that the leaves remind me of giant dandelions. It feels like I'm eating a wild food, so that is really nice. I've got another batch of carrots here, which I've literally just taken the covers off this morning. I've had some nets on to try and keep the carrot root flies off. They should hopefully have stopped flying by now, mid-October. And the carrots are looking really good. The foliage is looking lovely and lush, so hopefully this will be a nice little block of carrots to see us through winter. We've got parsnips down on this side that I haven't started harvesting from yet. I will be pulling up the first ones of those soon and seeing how they have come out for this year. So as you can see, it's kind of all about the winter root vegetables now, roots and greens. The courgettes are very nearly finished. I've taken back all the leaves to allow more light just for any fruits that we can get right at the end of the season so that they get maximum light on them. And there are a few there to harvest that I can just see now. Down here is a little herb bed that I planted about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and actually everything is growing really well other than the coriander, which I noticed when I was looking yesterday has all been eaten by slugs. But interestingly, none of the other herbs have. We've got dill and chervil and parsley and rocket, and everything else seems to be fine other than the coriander, which is this bit here that you can see has been completely munched. And then also dotted through this bed we've got lots of self-seeded parsnips, so I keep having to go through and just pull those out or hoe them out, because this is where we had parsnips last year, and I always save my own seed of parsnips, so there's always a few that drop off. Now coming up this way, another one of my favourite winter veggies is turnips, and I seem to have grown a lot of turnips this year. I did 2 sowings, one I sowed direct from seed and one I did in plugs. This was the seed, it's a little bit more tightly packed, but if we have a sneaky peek in here, you will see that we've got lots of beautiful turnips ready to go, and I really need to get on and start harvesting these now. I can feel lots of beautiful, warming, nurturing soups coming on. It's certainly getting to that time of year, and it's felt like it this morning. It's been just a little bit chillier today. And again, same with the carrots. I've actually had this bed covered up with mesh just as a trial to see if it keeps off the carrot root fly. I've just uncovered that this morning. Yeah, so fingers crossed. Over here, we are still harvesting beetroots from our very first sowing of beets. And I did have a bit of a tidy up the other day, and there are a few which have been a bit eaten by rats or mice, but there are still some really lovely big beetroots coming out of that bed. And actually there's one here which is possibly the biggest beetroot I've ever grown. I don't know if you can see around all the leaves. It's probably about the size of my head and that is a lovely yellow beetroot. So it'll be interesting to see if that one is still nice and sweet and tender, or if it is big and woody now. I often find with beetroots, people think that when they get big they are going to be really woody, and I often find that, much to my surprise, they're not. And it only seems to be if they've really dried out that they get woody. They will sit in the ground really, really well. Okay, so something I'm really excited to show you again, and I'm even more excited when it gets to harvest time, is the oca. And it is just getting bigger and lusher all the time at the moment. And as you can see, some of the plants now are actually beginning to flower. A little bit later today, those flowers will be a lot more open. It's still quite early in the morning, and so everything, including us, is just waking up still. You can see now a lot of the beans have finished from here. There's a few more dry pods that I can go through and grab. That was our Cherokee Trail of Tears. They finished a little bit sooner than the others. And just every few days, whenever I can, ideally when it's been dry for a little while, I'm just going through and harvesting a basket of beans, and then we finish them off in dry racks inside before shelling. So let's have a little look up here. We've got Mashua looking beautiful. This is a perennial nasturtium. Gives a lovely white root that we harvest in the middle of winter, December, January time. But the benefit of this crop, just like normal nasturtiums, is you can eat the leaves as well. And so it's a really lovely addition to winter salads. Nice spicy bite to it. Jerusalem artichokes. We've got plenty of those. We are definitely not going to go hungry this winter. And as you can see, these have the lovely little sunflowers on them as well, just like I was showing you on the Yacon just down on the other bed, all in the sunflower family. What I've noticed that's interesting about the Jerusalem artichokes this year is they seem to have flowered a little bit later than normal, and now the leaves are dropping. We normally get more of a period in time where they've got the lovely yellow flowers on and the leaves still look lush at the same time, but it's all kind of happened at once this year. Just an interesting observation there. This is our elephant garlic bed here, and again we've sowed the white mustard as a cover crop. This was sown direct onto a wood chip layer that we put down after sowing the elephant garlic, and as you can see, it has germinated pretty happily. And I would say actually any of those patches that you can see are probably more down to my lack of attention to scattering evenly rather than it not being happy germinated in certain patches. I'm just trying to see if I can spot any garlics poking through the soil yet, because normally around 2 weeks or so they can start showing their little heads through.
There's one.
Oh yeah, there's one, but I've got a feeling that's quite big. I've got a feeling that could be one of the little babies that got left from last year, perhaps in the soil, because it looks quite big. I'd only be expecting to just see their noses really. But yeah, there's definitely good growth going on in this bed. So again, that was a trial with the white mustard going directly down onto the wood chip this year. Dan wasn't convinced it was going to work. I've seen carrots germinating directly on wood chip before, which is something that people say in gardening you need really fine soil to germinate. We've had them germinate happily directly on wood chip, so the proof is in the pudding. Things will germinate just fine on wood chip. Okay, let's go through to this side. And up here, this is one bed which is very nearly closed down for winter now. This is where all our potatoes were grown. We've harvested all of our potatoes. The last ones that came out were our Sarpo Mirror, which were our main crop, big potatoes. We've pulled the plastic back over this bed because it basically just helps us manage all these areas. It's one less area to weed by using the black plastic. It keeps the soil warm. Yeah, so it's just one of the things that we find makes it much easier for us to manage this space. And then just yesterday, Dan has gotten a load of compost from the green waste site, which we'll mix with a little bit of our homemade compost for extra nutrients. And this is all ready for our change around of the polytunnels, which will be happening within the next week. So we'll be stripping out everything in the polytunnels, and tunnel 1 will be planted with salads and greens and brassicas for winter. And then polytunnel 2, we plant an early crop of potatoes in February, but we'll get those all ready just as soon as possible. So the only thing left in this bed now are these beautiful taros. And when is it we harvest taro, Dan?
Anytime, like when the first frosts come, the light frosts will get them.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear that, Dan just said as soon as we start getting light frosts, so basically as soon as the foliage starts to be killed back, the plants won't grow anymore, and we can harvest the tubers down below. Taro was something we tried new for the first time last year. Really impressed with the results. We've got it grown both outside and in the polytunnels, and it is a really cool crop. Another thing that we're harvesting from our polytunnels right now, which I'm absolutely loving, is we have got an abundance of red pointy peppers this year, and they are just delicious, and I'm using them in absolutely everything right now. Over this side in our big beds, we have just harvested our sweet potatoes from here, which you'll be able to check out in last week's video. And as you can see, we've got taro in this area still as well, so we've still got a harvest of taro to come. We've got our backup yacon bed over there, which we just kind of grow in case anything happens to our main bed. We've harvested all of our pumpkins now. Our corn is finished. As you can see, this side, other than the beautiful flowers, the astrameria and the dahlias, everything is starting to look quite bleak and autumny. And at this time of the year, we definitely slow down and pull back the pace of trying to keep on top of the gardens. And whilst there is still so much to do, it actually feels really natural just to begin to slow down and just let everything be a little bit more. So I hope you guys have enjoyed having a look around at our gardens in the middle of October for this autumn tour. If you've enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up button just below. Make sure you're subscribed to Freedom Forest Life if you would like to see more. Drop us any comments or questions down below, and we look forward to seeing you here again soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace and plants.